What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Bogman's Best Bets on BettingPros. Say that 5 times fast. Today, we're going to be talking about win totals for the college football season. Should be a lot of fun. I've picked 5 to tell you guys that I like, 3 overs, 2 unders. So splitting the difference on love and hate a little bit. But before I dive into these win totals, let me tell you guys about Fast Break Bets. If you like betting on basketball, then join host Terrell Furman on the Fast Breaks Bets podcast, your daily dose of basketball betting picks in 15 minutes or less. Tune in every day for your rapid fire fix on all things basketball, from the WNBA and the NBA to college basketball and more. Check out the Fast Break Bets podcast on the BettingPros YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm going to be doing a bunch of shows with Terrell Furman coming up soon. Not a Texas fan like I am. We're going to get a lot of horns down, which is not going to be my favorite, of course, but I'm going to really enjoy doing some shows with Terrell. He's going to be a lot of fun. Seth as well. Seth Wilcock, I'll be doing shows with as well this college football season. So let's dive into it, and let's start with my favorite of the season, Indiana over 5.5. Currently at most books, you're going to find this one going off at -135. I understand that not everybody loves year-long bets, right? I get it. But to me, it makes me enjoy some of these teams more. I have some bigger schools. This is one of the smaller schools that I have to talk about today because I wasn't going to watch a lot of Indiana, but I've placed several bets on them. So now I'm invested. And Indiana, they got their new head coach, Curt Cignetti, coming over from James Madison last season, which means 8 transfer starters on offense and 7 on defense. So when we look at a schedule for a team like this, you worry about these games up front because you worry about continuity. Sure, you have the whole offseason to work on it, but until you're out there running full reps, you don't know what you're going to get out of these starters. And for Indiana, I think Cignetti can do it, and the beginning of this schedule is extremely forgiving. I think this team has 3 guaranteed wins. Remember, the total's 5.5, so we need to get 3 and find 3. That is, we're in this, we have 3, we need to find 3, I think. Because I think your guaranteed wins against FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. And those 3 are all in the first month while this team is building confidence, while they're building continuity. So we get those wins out of the way. Then we go, okay, well, what are the losses when you're looking at the schedule? Well, Michigan and Ohio State are for sure losses for Indiana. I mean, it would take some type of godsend miracle for these teams to beat Michigan or Ohio State, in my opinion. So I'm going to count those as losses. But already we're starting with 3 guaranteed wins, 2 guaranteed losses. So we're ahead of schedule. So let's go through the rest of the schedule, and I'll tell you what I like. September 14th at UCLA. Don't really like that one. It's across the country and the first road game for this squad. But in terms of roster strength, it is somewhat of a coin flip. So it's a possibility. We'll say no on that one. First Maryland, September 28th. I like this game for Indiana. It's at home, and they were dismantled and embarrassed by Maryland last season. The previous 2 games had played much closer, and Indiana, to me, on paper, is a better team than Maryland now. So I like that game against Maryland. That would get us to 4. Another opportunity for a win at Northwestern on October 5th. This game is a bit trickier than advertised as it's on the road and the Cats are coming off a bye. But I have more confidence in this game than the game against Maryland because I just think Indiana has a better roster, even though Northwestern is coming off of a bye week, even though they're on the road. I think at this point in the season, I think Indiana may have 4 wins already. They may be playing with confidence, and I just think they're better than Northwestern. Northwestern always gives their best every single week. That's what makes Northwestern a little bit scary every single week, but I really like Indiana in that game. Then we go to October 19th against Nebraska. Lots of factors are going to determine this game. We will be deeper in the season, of course. We're going to have a better sense of both teams with Matt Rule taking over in Nebraska, but there are 2 factors I like for Indiana in this one. And it's coming off a bye for them, and it's at home. The games get real tight after this one, so this one could be really big, but if they do beat Maryland and if they do beat Northwestern, we would already be sitting at 5. So Nebraska's it. But if they don't win this game, then we have 3 other games where I think they could potentially win and hit this win total. Let's go against Washington October 26th. And I know when you hear Washington, you go, okay, well, this team is coming off the Natty. But Jed Fish's team at Washington isn't going to be what they were last season. They're in a similar spot with Indiana, if we're being honest. A lot of transfers in, a lot of transfers out, new head coach, but they have a lot of pressure, and everything is built up on the back of last season. But, this whole offense is completely different. Most of their stars went to the NFL and are playing there now. So, this is going to be a potential look-ahead spot for Washington as well, because they got USC going to Seattle the following week. So I think that one is where, Indiana's going to be more dangerous. They're going to have a lot of continuity at this point in the season, and we're going to know what they are. So I think the line could go either way by the time we get there. I think Indiana could be the favorite. Washington could be a bigger favorite if they look good again. Jed Fish is a good coach, but it's a tall task to ask here. At Michigan State on November 2nd. This is another one I'm not in love with. It's on the road. Michigan State is about on the same level as Indiana, maybe a little bit better. The one thing for Indiana in this one is that MSU is coming off a likely big loss on the road to Michigan, and the desperation for Indiana to potentially make a bowl game if they haven't hit that 6 wins should be fairly high. So it's either desperation to get to that 6th win, or they've already hit the 6th win and you've already cashed this ticket. So Michigan and Ohio State are the next 2 games after this Michigan State game, and that's where I think things could potentially go awry. Then we have versus Purdue on November 30th. Indiana gets a week off between Michigan and Ohio State, but the last game is at home against Purdue, and both teams are going to look very different with injuries and depth chart and all of that by the time we get here. Give me the home team in this one, and Cignetti should have Indiana kind of clicking at this point. So I just think there's so many opportunities. Like I said, we go in, I see 3 locks on the schedule, and I only see 2 loss locks on the schedule. Those are the games, of course, I think they'll lose. I don't particularly like that Michigan State game on the road. I don't like that UCLA game early. But both those teams are kind of in line with Indiana. So I think Indiana hits this 5.5. My second bet here, let's go to North Carolina. Their total is 7.5. I like the over for UNC as well. It's -115, and they do look a lot different. Obviously, Drake May is out, but Max Johnson taking over here for the Tar Heels, I like a lot. He's in a competition for the starting spot with sophomore Connor Harrell, but I think he's going to win the job. He was at LSU and Texas A&M, so he has a lot of experience. He's got NFL talent in the backfield in Omarion Hampton and tight end Bryson Nesbitt as well. He has a lot of options in terms of roster strength. And my man Nick Allen, who I do a CFB Winning Edge podcast with, has UNC as a top 10. He has them top 10 on offense and top 30 on defense. And the schedule is what I really love for the Tar Heels, as I only see one for sure loss, if we're throwing up air quotes here, and that is to Florida State on the road November 2nd. And I'm going to say for sure loss, as in most of the time I think they lose that game. In most scenarios, however you want to say it, I think they drop that game. But I don't even know if that is a guaranteed loss. I'll give it to them, right now. But we'll talk about Florida State a little bit later as well. But hard games. The opener on the road against Minnesota isn't a cakewalk, and they're currently underdogs by a couple points. I think that's a tough one. On the road against Duke on September 28th isn't an easy game, but if the 3 previous games give UNC some rhythm, this could turn into a coasting win because Duke is not in one of their up years this season. The final 2 at Boston College on November 23rd could be tricky, but I would think that UNC is in a walk, could be that game. And the last game is at home, but against NC State. That's the one that I think is really going to come down to how those teams are looking at the very end. I think we have some lock wins here. Charlotte, North Carolina, James Madison, Pitt, Georgia Tech, at Virginia. That's a tougher game at UVA, but Clemson, they play Clemson the week before, and they're going to be looking ahead to that bye week after this game. So I like that one for them. Wake Forest coming off a bye and at home when they play Wake Forest, and then at Boston College. I think those are all very winnable for the Tar Heels. Good on defense, potentially really good on offense for North Carolina. So I think 7.5 wins is something that is absolutely achievable for them. Before I move on, do you want to get a free trial of BettingPros Premium? If you've never had BettingPros Premium, download the BettingPros app and activate your free FREE trial of BettingPros Premium on the upgrade screen. You get expert picks, projections, our prop bet analyzer, custom line alerts, and much more for baseball, the MLB, NFL, and college football. Go and get your free trial of BettingPros Premium today. All right, I mentioned them. Let's talk about Florida State because I am on the under for this team at 9.5 wins. It's -110, so it's even, which means, Vegas isn't on my side and the bets aren't really on my side right now. This one is just kind of not being messed with. I still really like Florida State, but this schedule is brutal, and this team has changed a lot from last season to this season. Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell, all gone on offense. Defense, you lose Verse, Fiskey, Green, Jones, Bethune. All these guys, 10 players in the NFL draft, are gone from the squad. FSU is always going to recruit well, and they have a solid roster still, but the core of this team is just vastly different. And when we look at the schedule, I see four for sure wins against BC, against Memphis, Cal, Charleston Southern, I think those are 4 guarantees. All right, some games that they should win but are tricky. Georgia Tech, August 24th. That's in Dublin. They're way better than Georgia Tech, Florida State. But that game on the road, traveling a lot, stranger things have happened. That should be a win for them, but stranger things have happened. At Duke, October 18th. Duke has always played Florida State pretty well. Like I said, it's a down year for Duke. I don't think they should be competing, but that game might be a little trickier than it looks. And then the game against North Carolina that I mentioned before, still think it's a dub for them, but UNC has a very good core and are dangerous, as I mentioned in the last preview. And this game is wedged between at Miami and at Notre Dame. So you might be coming off a tough loss, hanging your head a little bit, or you might be looking forward to Notre Dame in that game against North Carolina. So I don't know about that one. Then there's a bunch of games to me that could go either way for this team. At SMU, this is a coin flip in terms of roster strength. It's on the road, and it's a look-ahead spot for Clemson for Florida State. So I don't love that game for them. Then they have Clemson. They're at home. That means FSU should win in that, but talent is a coin flip. This game is always tough every single time they play. At Miami, we already mentioned that one. Tough on both teams in terms of the schedule. FSU is in an at Duke, at Miami versus UNC, at Notre Dame stretch, while Miami is at Louisville, FSU, and then Duke. So let's give Miami this game at home. I think, the home game goes to Miami there. At Notre Dame, another tough one. And while the current line I have for that game is razor thin, I'm going to lean towards Notre Dame at home, and I'm going to go with Notre Dame in that one as well. And then versus Florida, yet another game that is a very solid rivalry game. Now, look, Florida at this point in the season, I mean, they should probably have a new head coach. Maybe they're trying new things on offense. I don't know. But it's not impossible that Florida looks good, overperforms, and is in this game. That's still one of the best teams in the country. It's still a very good SEC team with a lot of talent. So I don't know, man. I think when you look critically at FSU's schedule, it's not my favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and bet the under on FSU. Last two here, I got Houston over 4.5. Now this flipped. It was when I wrote this down on Monday or Tuesday. I'm recording this on Thursday. Their total was 3.5. The juice was bad. It was -160, but I was so confident in that that I'm still willing to take this bet. It's down to minus 125, and you add an extra game. But I'm still willing to take this. I think there are 4 guaranteed losses for Houston, and 3 of them are road games at Oklahoma, at Kansas, at home versus Utah, at Arizona. I think those are all likely losses. I would say that the game at TCU is close to those games as well, but I think it's a little more of a toss-up, especially with Houston being as dangerous as they were last year. I live in the Houston area. I don't live close to Houston. I actually live closer to Texas A&M than I do to the Cougars, but I think that this team is good. I watched them play my Texas Longhorns last season, right? And they were so close to winning that game. And I saw a lot from Donovan Smith, their NFL level QB. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Ben Roethlisberger. He shrugs off tacklers. He stands in there. He's got a big arm. I like him a lot. But in terms of the schedule, I think I like Iowa State to beat Houston, but that game is far from a guarantee. Just Iowa State has a lot returning, a lot of continuity. We got Houston with a new head coach and Willie Fritz. I kind of like Iowa State in that game. But there are other games. UNLV, Rice, at Cincy, Baylor, at BYU are all doable for Houston. I think they can win all of those games. And, you know, this schedule, you're beating Rice, you're beating Cincy for sure. So that's 2 wins. We're looking for 3 more. I think between that group, they can get 3 more wins. I think this is all very doable for them. They got a big influx of starters on the defensive side because Willie Fritz is building. Willie Fritz is a great game planner. I think those games that are close are going to go to Houston more often than not. So I don't think that it's just getting to 5 wins for them. I see a potential bowl berth for Houston in this season. I think it can really happen. And I think because you have an NFL level QB in Donovan Smith, it gives your team a little bit slighter of an edge. We're going to finish out with an under. Kansas State under 9.5. This is not the best juice. It is minus 150. But I'm honestly kind of surprised that this hasn't flipped down to 8.5 or 9, as I said, with Houston bumping up. K-State was one of the more overperforming teams last season, and the expectations are still a little high considering they lost QB Will Howard, tight end Ben Sinnott, offensive lineman Cooper Beebe, and only have 3 returning starters on offense. I just think that's going to be probably too much to overcome. The defense is in good shape with 7 returning starters, but they were not on the same level as the offense. They were more league average, or country average, and the offense was very, very strong for them last season. I think there are 4 guaranteed wins on the schedule. UT Martin, BYU, Arizona State, and Cincinnati. Those are lock wins for K-State, so that's 4. The home games on the schedule are tough. Arizona early in week 3. Then they have Oklahoma State week 5. Kansas week 9. Those are all tough games. The road games are rough too. At Tulane in week 2, at Colorado. They're coming off a bye at Colorado, so maybe they get that win. At West Virginia, though. West Virginia is one of the hardest locations in the country. Iowa State late in the season. I think that one might be cold. Like I said, there's a lot of returning starters for Iowa State as well. Last week of the regular season can be dicey. I just really think that maybe Kansas State might be the safest of the ones I said. Obviously, you're getting the worst juice, but if you're going to wait all year, if I'm waiting all year, I'm usually going to place a bigger bet than normal. 2 units, 3 units, however comfortable you feel doing that, whatever unit is for you, of course, as well. I would rather do that for a bet that isn't giving me the best juice, but that I really like. Let's bet it heavy to get that investment back because it seems like so much of a lock. But what are your guys' favorite win totals? Let us know. I would really love to hear some of them. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. I'll be back with some bets for week 0 next week. Take it easy, everybody.